Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning. Any questions before we get started?
Do we have any Khan Academies this week?
Yes, there will be some Khan Academies this week. How are you guys finding the exercises? Are they helpful? Did you give them a thumbs up? Thumbs down?
The only hard part is you can't really tell like what you've done, for me at least. Like I can't tell what I've done on it.
Let me take a look and see if there's a way you guys should be able to look at what you've completed. Yeah, that would be disconcerting. All right. So I want to talk about the midterm review. Just to let you guys see where most of the information and handouts are. Let me share my screen here. So if you go into our class on Brightspace, right, to find most, and I have a list of things under midterm review. If you go to content, okay, and you click on content, and you come down here, see where it says course materials? That's what you want to click on, and it's going to give you a list. Now, some of these things are things that are coming up. But right here, I have a midterm review. And this is a list with handouts. So here are the handouts that I've given you guys so far. Excuse me. Now, there are a couple things we didn't get to. And so far, it's not letting me edit this list for some reason, probably because I imported it from Blackboard. So you don't have to worry about figurative language and process analysis right now. Those things are coming up. Okay. But here are all of the handouts. So I'd like to go back and just make sure everybody remembers what we talked about, because these are the things I'll be asking you to write essay questions for. And then there'll be some exercises on the commas, the fragments, and the run-on sentences. I want to see if anybody has any questions about those. Okay. So you just click on it and it should download the handout if you don't already have it saved in a folder somewhere. So we started with reading techniques, right? Annotating, summarizing, pre-reading to get a feel for the publication and the author. And we also have all along been talking about the stages of writing. If you study the handouts, you'll be in good shape. Now, don't copy and paste the handouts and don't plagiarize from the internet in your answers, okay? What you need to do is paraphrase the ideas and show me that you can put them in your own words, all right? The introduction techniques, conclusion techniques. I think I need to, yeah, thesis statements. This is a link that has some more information on thesis statements. I will add the thesis statements handout. But here's a good one-stop shopping kind of place for studying. Okay, so remember, you go to content, and then you go to course materials. Any questions about finding review resources?
Is this on Monday, the test?
Yeah, midterm will be on Monday. And one thing, if I put things in the chat, you know, typically in class you would take notes, but you can also copy and paste things from the chat into like a Word document that you just have open. You know, you can maybe put the date of the class. And then if you forget any of these things that we're talking about, you have some of the references, because I try to put it both places just in case somebody's having trouble with audio. So don't forget, and then you can have some of the notes. So yeah, we'll do the midterm online Monday. So I'll probably come in and get you guys started and let you work on it for the whole class period, which should be plenty of time to get through it.
Can you go over where the review is at again?
Sure. So if you go, and I believe I have this in both academic writing lab, excuse me, this morning, and I have it in both classes. Okay, right now you probably want to default to English 111 because I know I have everything in there. But I try to put it in both places. I even have an announcement with the links up here that you can also pull from. But for the midterm review, go to content. Okay, and then you'll have some options down here at the left. And then you go to course materials. Okay. And when you're in course materials, if you just cursor down a little bit, you'll get to the midterm review. Or whenever, if you have a big list you have to go through, when I don't want to spend the time, or I don't know if I'll see it because I'm running through it too fast, you hit Control F and type in midterm review and it should take you there. Okay. So content and then course materials. Same thing when we get to the final, I have a final exam review resources here. But I also have some of the links that we've covered: editing for conciseness, parallel construction, right? Kind of all the things that we've been talking about all along. Yeah, we'll get on Zoom just briefly so I can show you guys where the exam is and get you started, but it'll only be for like 5 minutes and to answer any questions that you have. Do you have any questions about it right now?
Is it going to be like questions, like, or is it going to be like fill in the blanks or write a small something, or?
It's going to be a mix. It'll be a mix of sort of short paragraph answers, some comma exercises, basically grammar punctuation exercises.
Can we go over like the run-ons and like fragments again? Because I'm confused by them.
Yes, I wanted to go over those again. I like to go over them several times.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. You, Fabian, are you saying you want to use the Khan Academy ones to go over them, or are you asking a question about those?
No, I'm asking if the exam questions are gonna be like the Khan Academy activities.
If the questions
Of the midterm.
are going to be like those,
Yeah.
yeah, they'll be similar.
Okay.
So yes, let's talk about fragments and run-ons. So one of my favorite resources for any kind of information is called the Purdue Writing Lab. It's basically Purdue University's online writing lab. So if you type in Purdue and whatever subject that you want, so we'll go for fragments. It usually will bring up the section on Purdue that talks about those things. Let's look at it and let's do some exercises, some more to make sure everybody's. So basically, a fragment is also called a dependent clause because it depends on something else to complete its meaning. It's not independent. It cannot stand by itself as a full thought. One of the easiest ways to fix them is to remove the period between the fragment and the main clause. Sometimes you have to add a comma. Okay. We looked at some of these yesterday. Remember, it's missing, if you like the flowchart thing, you can ask yourself, does it have a subject and does it have a verb, and are those two things interacting with each other? Okay, so something like a story with deep thoughts and emotions. We can, it's not a full thought, but they're easier to see in isolation. It's much harder in your paper, right? Because you've just read a sentence that probably connects with it and finishes the thought. So one thing you can do if you have a fragment issue is read your paper backwards. I don't mean word by word, but sentence by sentence. So read the last sentence and you kind of work your way up, and then you can spot any fragments that are sort of standing out by themselves because you haven't just read an idea that completes it. That makes sense. So basically it's either missing a verb or a subject. So you want to try it, but and also that test phrase, it is true that, if you put that in front of it. Now, the only kinds of sentences that it does not work on are the understood you, whereas basically if you're giving somebody a command, we understand you're talking to that person. So if I say, stop that, that's a complete thought. But it's not going to work with the it is true that test. Because if I say it is true that, stop that, that doesn't sound right. It sounds weird. But otherwise it works for most sentences if you test it. It is true that a story with deep thoughts and emotions. It does not feel like it expresses a good idea. So let's look at some examples, some exercises. Same thing here. If you've already done I think I'll probably assign the Khan Academy fragment and run-on exercises for the next couple weeks, or for the next week, so you guys can get some practice with them. Come on, internet, wake up. Must be busy this morning. There we go. So there's some sentences. Let's see which ones, if we can tell which ones are correct. They're a complete thought, okay? Which ones are fragments, okay? So then I attended Morris Junior High. So what if we put the test phrase? It is true that then I attended Morris Junior High. That sounds okay, right? Sounds like a complete thought. It is true that a junior high that was a bad experience. What do you think? Fragment or not a fragment? You can type your answer in the chat if you want. Or you can just say it.
So a fragment is like a full sentence?
No, a fragment is the opposite of a full sentence.
Oh, okay.
So think of it as a fragment of a sentence, a fragment of thought, an incomplete thought. So if it cannot be by itself and make sense, it is a fragment. So can this
So,
stand by itself? If we take this out, if we ignore this part, can this be a sentence by itself? It is true that a junior high, that was a bad experience.
yeah.
Yeah, what? Yeah, it's a fragment. Yeah, it's
Not a fragment.
it is a fragment. So if I say it's a junior high that was a bad experience, I want to know more. Does that make sense? If I say, I didn't say I went to, like, there's no person in here who is going to this school. Does that make sense?
Kind of.
We'll keep working on it. That's why we work on these. So basically, a junior high that was a bad experience, I keep expecting them to say something more. A junior high that was a bad experience is damaging to your psyche. Or what about a junior high that was a bad experience? Let's try another one. The scene was filled with beauty. It is true that the scene was filled with beauty, right? Complete thought?
Complete.
Good. Such as the sun sending its brilliant rays to the earth and the leaves of various shades of red, yellow, and brown moving slowly in the wind. It is true that
Incomplete.
incomplete, yes. Okay. Here are some words. Let's see. Here are some clues. There are dependent words that tend to start fragments. I know they have that on here. So, such as is one of those terms that tends to start a fragment. Okay. Which, because sometimes starts a fragment. It can be part of a full sentence. But there are some keywords, and we tend to use them, right? We tend to have patterns to our writing, like things that we use a lot, just because that's our style of writing. So if you can recognize the words that you tend to use and check sentences that start with those things, okay, then you can have a better chance of seeing if something's a fragment or not. You hit your Control F and you search for such as or which, and make sure that it's a full thought by itself. All right, number 3, he talked for 50 minutes without taking his eyes off his notes. It is true that he talked for 50 minutes without taking his eyes off his notes. Okay. Like other teachers in that department, he did not encourage students' questions. It is true that like other teachers in that department, he did not encourage students' questions. What do you think? Complete or incomplete idea, thought?
Complete.
Yes, right?
So is the incomplete fragments or is it the complete sentences?
Incomplete are fragments.
Okay.
It's a fragment of a sentence. It's maybe I shouldn't be saying sentence. It's a fragment of an idea. It's not a complete idea. So if you can remember fragment, you know, as an incomplete part of something, right? So what we're looking at is determining which ones can stand by themselves. That's a independent clause. And which ones cannot stand by themselves, and those are fragments. This cannot be a sentence by itself, therefore it is a fragment of thought. All right, 4, within each group, a wide range of features to choose from. It was difficult to distinguish between them. I'll give you a clue. One of these is a fragment. Which one? It is true that within each group, a wide range of features to choose from. It is true that it was difficult to distinguish between them. Yes, Lizzie, the first one is incomplete this time. Okay. Within each group, a wide range, you know, was it they had a wide range of features to choose from? There's something missing in here. You get a sense of something is not quite all there. It's a fragment that needs to be fixed. Now, how do we fix this? We take that period out and say within each group, it had a wide range of features to choose from. So you add what's missing, in this case, the subject, okay? And this one is just commenting on the first idea. Within each group, there was a wide range of features to choose from. All right, 5, a few of the less serious fellows would go into a bar for a steak dinner and a few glasses of beer. After this meal, they were ready for anything. Either of those incomplete? Are they complete thoughts? It's true that a few of the serious fellows would go into a bar for a steak dinner and a few glasses of beer. It is true that after this meal, they were ready for anything.
Complete.
Very good. Both of those are complete thoughts that can stand by themselves. So they are sentences. They are not fragments. Okay. It is true that it can be really embarrassing to be so emotional. It is true that especially when you are on your first date, you feel you should be in control.
Complete, both of them.
Both of them are complete. Very good. It is true the magazine has a reputation for a sophisticated, prestigious, and elite group of readers. It is true that, although that is a value judgment and in circumstance not a true premise. This one's tricky. These are both also complete. This is a word, however, to keep in mind that often starts a fragment. But you have that, which is the subject. That is a value judgment. Okay. You have the verb. Okay. So all of this can stand by itself as a sentence. In the 7th grade, every young boy goes out for football. To prove to himself and his parents that he is a man. What do you think? Yes, the second one is incomplete. Very good. Yeah, because you couldn't put this somewhere by itself. It has to have this sentence, therefore it should be connected to this sentence. You could just take out the period and that would fix it. She opened the door and let us into her home. So we've got a subject, we've got a verb, right? Direct object, she opened the door and let us into her home, okay? Not realizing at the time that we would never enter that door in her home again. What's the main verb in this sentence? I accept guesses.
And the enter?
Say that again?
Enter?
You would think so. It is a verb, right? But the main thought that it's trying to express is they realizing at this time, basically coming to an understanding. What they're realizing is that they would never go in again. So the main verb here is realizing. Who's realizing in this sentence? Who's the
She.
subject realizing? Go ahead.
She.
Yes, but is she in this sentence?
No.
No, she's over here. Therefore, without this sentence, you can't have this thought. So this is a fragment. To fix it, you would just basically put a comma there. She opened the door and let us into her home, not realizing at the time we would never enter that door in her home. As Christmas grows near, I find myself looking back into my childhood days at fun-filled times of snowball fights. To think about this makes me happy.
It's the same as the other two. The first sentence is full, but the following has to have that first sentence to make it make sense.
This one's tricky because it's not in the usual order. So thinking about this makes who happy?
Me.
And me's in the sentence, right?
Yeah.
So it's not the usual order that we put things in. We don't usually say to think about, we might say thinking about this makes me happy.
Mhm.
It is still a complete thought because it has the person, the subject in it, and the verb.
So they're both complete?
Yeah, because if we put it is true that to think about this makes me happy.
Okay.
Okay, because we've got thinking about this makes me happy. We've got the verb, we've got the subject. Making up his mind quickly. Ignore the rest of that. Making is the verb, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now here's a tricky one. His is possessive, as a possessive pronoun, so it can't be the subject here. So who's making up his mind quickly?
Tim.
But he's not in the sentence, right?
No.
So we got a fragment again. So we could convert this by putting a comma here, then you have introductory word group before this main sentence. Jim ordered 2 dozen red roses for his wife. That's a nice complete thought, right? Is not a fragment like the first one. Hoping she would accept his apology. Who is hoping that she would accept his apology?
Jim.
Jim again, and he's not in that sentence.
That's a fragment.
Or you could put, he is hoping she would accept his apology. So basically splitting up the sentences and acting like one of them is not there can help you see if that could have all the information somebody needed. Okay, thus the reading your paper backward sentence by sentence. Now, if I don't pick on you for this too much, you know, I mean, be aware of it, but don't obsess about it. But if I do, then you need to learn a lot more about fragments and how to prevent them. We're running out of time, so I want to get over to run-ons too. So run-ons are kind of the opposite, where this is just a fragment of a thought. That's what a fragment is. It's an incomplete thought that cannot stand by itself as a sentence. Let's look at run-on sentences. So what a run-on sentence, it's also sometimes called a fused sentence. Basically, what it is you have too many thoughts without enough punctuation to separate them for your reader. Have you ever tried to read a text message that doesn't have any periods in it? You're reading run-on sentences, and they're very difficult, right, to read because they don't give you any clues about where you're supposed to stop, absorb one idea, and then go on to the next idea. Okay. So basically, you have two full ideas squished together or fused together. They weren't dangerous criminals, they were detectives in disguise. And we talked about some of the ways to fix these. What could you put, first of all, where do you divide this up?
Criminals.
Right here, right? It is true that they weren't dangerous criminals. It is true they were detectives in disguise. Both of those work, so they can't be together without any punctuation to separate them. So what are some options for fixing it?
Would a comma work?
A comma, but you need something else. If you just put a comma, it's not enough. It's like a yield sign where you need a stop sign.
Would you need a comma and a fanboy?
And a fanboy, yes, excellent. So you need one of those connecting words that also gives us more information because it shows us the relationship between the ideas. Okay. You wouldn't say
Can you give
and.
me an example of a fanboy? Because I did not learn those. I learned like comma conjunction.
Okay, that's what conjunctions are.
Okay, never mind.
No, you're good. Fanboys is a way to remember because sometimes people try to use it with other connecting words that are different kind of conjunctions. So fanboys is just a way to remember which ones you can use a comma with. So it's for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so.
Would but work in that one? They were dangerous criminals, comma, but they were detectives in disguise.
I don't think but is the best choice for that one. Well, let's try some different ones. They weren't dangerous criminals and they were detectives in disguise. I'm still not liking it.
I like yet.
Yet might work. I kind of like the actual semicolon thing, because what they're saying is, like, you attempted just to use a comma. That means you recognize, you have good instincts. You recognize there should be some sort of separation there, but you don't have enough of a separation there. So a semicolon sort of says, hey, these two things are really close, you know, one follows from the other, but it's stronger than a comma. So I really think the semicolon is probably the best option here. None of the connecting words are feeling like they would work. Or doesn't work, because or is giving you two choices. They're basically saying that the second idea follows from the first. You could do so. They weren't dangerous criminals, so they were detectives in disguise. I still not loving it. I like the semicolon for this one. This one lends itself. I didn't know which job I wanted. I was too confused to decide. Okay. And indicates that the two ideas are of equal importance. Okay. Question? So you want to use a kind of a combination of these techniques because it gives you different kinds of sentences. So this has a different sound and feel to it than using a comma and a fanboy. Okay. So here you have these two sentences, but here you have a compound sentence, right? So basically run-ons and fragments are kind of the opposite. A fragment is not enough information. It's a fragment of what you need. And a run-on is too much information that's not separated. Is this making more sense? But the reason I go over these three things, commas, fragments, and run-ons, is because they are things that are very frequently problems for most writers. So if you have issues with these, you are not alone. So I'm going to assign some Khan Academy exercises on these to help you guys review. Okay. On Thursday, please come with any questions you have. And if you're still struggling with it, we can spend some more time working on it. I want to make sure everybody is on the same page, and we'll also talk more about what I'm looking for in the exam and how much detail you should go into with your short essay answers. What kind of answers I'm looking for the questions. The more you tell me, the more points I can give you, and I like to give you points. If you do not study, it will be a struggle. So I recommend you go over the handouts because they basically have all the information I'm going to be looking for. So work on the upcoming Khan Academy exercises on fragments and run-ons this week. Okay. Any questions or anything you want to talk about on Thursday? If you haven't looked at my comments on your resume, make sure you take a look because I have marked some areas if you have comma splices or fragments or run-ons, then you'll kind of know if you have an idea. See if you can identify them in your paper and what's missing. All right. Otherwise, I'm going to give you guys the last 10 minutes to work on the Khan exercises. Give me a few minutes to make sure I go in and assign it, and then it should be ready.
Can you figure out if you can make it so you can see what we've done?
Yes. Let me put that information in an email and send it out to you guys.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Then I will see you guys tomorrow.
Have a good day.
You too.